Welcome to the Mark White Show. I have a very special edition with several very special guests joining me today, and I am glad that you all can join me. Thank you, first off, for helping me to cross over 12,000 followers on the Mark White Show. I appreciate each and every one of you who are following me on the show. More importantly, you are hearing the stories of people who sometimes need help. We have organizations who need support, and you are there to do that, and I appreciate you, and I look at us as a team. This is the Mark White Show effort, and I appreciate all of you for being a part of this. Of course, every week I come to you through the radio, and I share other stories as well, and one of those stories right now is about Duchenne's. And Duchenne's is something I had not heard of myself, and I'm guessing that many of you have not heard of Duchenne's as well. But I saw a young man named Elijah Stacy on his page called Destroy Duchenne, and he was making a plea for people to join him in his effort out of Corona, California. And he lost his brother, Max, on January the 3rd. And of course, that even gave him more motivation to try to help others in this situation. And I wanted to welcome Elijah to the show, to come to the Mark White Show, and he accepted my invitation, and he's been doing some very great things as he's helping this movement along. Welcome to the Mark White Show, Elijah.
All right, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for what you're trying to do for so many others. It's not just about yourself, and it's not just about Max, but it's about everyone who is affected by Duchenne.
Absolutely, 100%.
Tell me, Elijah, about your effort and what you are trying to do to bring awareness to Duchenne.
Yeah, exactly. So about a year ago, I started a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our goal is to bring tons and tons of awareness to Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and to educate the masses about what it is and what it does and how it affects children and families. And the other goal is to raise enough money to fund scientific research, because there's some really, really promising studies that they've done using things like CRISPR-Cas9, which have already yielded positive results in animals that has reversed the effects of Duchenne. So we're really confident. I'm really confident that we'll be able to cure this disease with enough help. It just takes help, and I think we'll be able to do it. So we're trying to cure it and raise awareness, in short.
Sure. And Elijah, I have heard you talk about this being the childhood form of ALS. If you would talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Duchenne muscular dystrophy isn't actually ALS, but we, as an organization, we compare it to ALS. So Duchenne is like the kid version of ALS. And the reason we say that is because both diseases cause muscle weakness. Both diseases cause patients to become wheelchair bound. They lose their arm function. The diseases are both really rare, but they're not that rare if you think about it. They're both 100% fatal. But the major difference is people with ALS are normally adults, and they're getting around the ages of 40 to 70, where people with Duchenne, they're born from the start, and so they're kids, and they have to grow up with it. So that's one of the major differences. The other major differences is ALS is neurological and Duchenne is muscular. However, we just compare it to ALS because ALS is way more known than Duchenne, and I think it helps people understand better what Duchenne is.
And right now, of course, they had the Ice Bucket Challenge, and you did the Ice Cup Challenge. Tell us about that.
Yes. So we started the Ice Cup Challenge, the DMD Ice Cup Challenge. You can look it up on Twitter, just the hashtag DMD Ice Cup Challenge, or Facebook or Instagram on the same hashtag. But we started that on January 30th to raise awareness for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And the reason it's a cup and not a bucket is because a cup is smaller, and so that kind of represents children, since a bucket is bigger, that represents like adults or whatever. But a cup is smaller, so it represents the kids. But like I said, it's just like ALS. So it's like the same type of challenge as the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Only difference is it affects kids, so it's smaller because it represents the little ones.
Where did that challenge begin?
Well, we started it. I started it at my high school with a group of amazing people. My principal, and the superintendent of our school district. And so we recorded it, and we started it at my school. We launched it, and so far it's been moving really, really fast, better than we expected.
Oh, I know it has, Elijah. I have been watching people across the country take the Ice Cup Challenge, and I thought, it just takes one person like yourself to get the ball rolling. And of course, that's what I try to show people through the show, is that if you stand up and take the initiative, some really amazing things can happen. If you would tell us about support that you've had in Corona, California, and then of course it went from the West Coast to the East Coast. I saw some folks up in Pennsylvania, I believe it was, where they were taking the Ice Cup Challenge themselves.
Yeah, so I want to give a big shout out to my man Jordan Reidenberg. He's actually a friend of mine who has Duchenne himself, and we talk a lot. He lives in Pennsylvania, so he got that started at his school and everything, and then it started spreading through Pennsylvania. So like you just said, it just takes one person to get the ball rolling. So he's that one person in Pennsylvania that got the ball rolling. If people want to start this in their state, it will get the ball rolling. And just like you said, it takes one person. Like, that is 100% true. But yeah, so it started there, and then the support in Corona is amazing. We had a fundraiser last year, our first fundraiser, and we sold the whole building out with 250 people at our bowling battle. So support for the Stir Duchesne in Corona is absolutely amazing, and I love my city and all their support.
Let's talk about your personal motivation. Of course, you have Duchenne's yourself, but your brother Max, if you would tell us about him.
Yeah, so my brother Max, he was 14. He had other problems besides Duchenne. But he passed away on January 3rd because he started to have pulmonary failure. And yeah, it was really sad to see him go. And I think the saddest part was, and still to this day, is just watching my parents go through it. We have words in the English dictionary to explain losing a loved one. You lose your parents, you're an orphan. If you lose your wife or husband, you're a widow, right? But there's no word that explains losing a child. There's no word, and maybe that's because words can't describe the feeling. I don't know, but just watching my parents lose a child is really motivated me, because it's not, I can only imagine it's not just my parents. It's other parents that are losing their kids to Duchenne every single day. So just seeing that up close really, really inspired me, because I obviously don't want to die myself, but I don't want my parents to have to lose me or another child, and I don't want other parents to have to lose a child too. So that's been really my motivation, is to do it for the parents and do it for the kids.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Elijah, your passion comes through the videos that I have seen, and what you're doing right now with that passion is quite remarkable. And I know that Max would be very proud of his brother right now and what you're doing. And I know that your parents are proud of you as well. We've got kids across the country and across the world who need people like you, Elijah, to be a voice for them. And one of the things that I notice across your page, Destroy Duchenne, is the word inspire. And of course, that is what we have to do to touch people's lives. How are you going about trying to inspire them through your story?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think the number one reason, or the number one way I inspire people, is probably the fact that I have in a lot of ways, not always, but I have a worse off situation than most people. But the fact is I'm still happy, and I'm still going, and I'm still very passionate and doing something. And I think that inspires people to do something. So it's like, if this guy can do it, being in a wheelchair and needing help and stuff with whatever, he could still do something, then, I could do something. So I think that's really inspirational itself. And I think it's how I inspire people. And I think just the fact that I'm not only doing something, but I'm accomplishing things that are really hard to do, I think that's inspiration too. I definitely get inspired by great athletes or great entrepreneurs who accomplish things that seem impossible. So I think that's how I inspire people.
I love that. Elijah Stacy is who we're talking to from Corona, California. He's a student at Centennial High School. This guy has a 4.6 GPA if it hasn't increased any higher lately, but he loves law as well. And he's also the first high school student to be selected as an intern for Riverside County District Attorney. Elijah, tell us about your love of law and your experience with the district attorney's office.
Yeah, so I was a freshman. I guess I've always been interested in like intellectual debate. So I joined my mock trial team at school, which if no one knows what mock trial is, it's basically a simulation of a courtroom for high school students. It's just kind of like a sport that you can kind of practice law, and you have like lawyers as coaches or whatever. So I joined that as a freshman, and I did very, very well. I had one of the hardest jobs on our team as a freshman, and so I was pretty good at it. I just got really interested in law and stuff, and I thought it'd be a cool job. And then I got an internship at the Riverside District Attorney's Office, and I was put in there with a bunch of college kids because I was in the college academy, so I was the first high school student, like you said. And then I got to work with lawyers and court cases, actual court cases, and do stuff on them. And yeah, I learned a lot about law. It's a lot of paperwork, more than I thought. I didn't know it was that much paperwork, but it's interesting to me. And it's a really cool process how the court system works. I didn't know that that's how it works. It works very, very detailed to go and find the truth. And so that's kind of my experience with the DA and law.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing good things out of you with that route that you're taking. Of course, there's no debate as to the fact that we need to destroy Duchesne's. And that is number one on the list right now. And I know that you're making a very special effort to make that happen. If listeners and followers wanted to join your effort, what do they need to do, Elijah?
Yeah, so if they want to join the effort, I would urge them to go to any social media they have, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and search Destroy Duchesne. And that's Destroy, and then Duchesne is DUCHENNE. DUCHENNE. And if they want to check out the website too, they can go to destroyduchesne.org. They can find all the social media stuff on there and stuff about the ice challenge that we're doing and all types of stuff. What we plan on funding for research and everything. So I definitely urge people to go on social media because that's where our stories really get told, and that's really where we do our operations.
Elijah, I really appreciate the fact that you've joined me this morning. I'll tell you, I will take the Ice Cup Challenge, and I think I'll let my 5-year-old Cora do it for me. So I think she'll be dumping the ice on me. I think she'll enjoy that.
It sucks. It's fun though, but it sucks.
Yeah, I heard it's pretty cold. So anyway, Elijah, thank you for what you're doing. I'm going to continue to share your pages through the Mark White Show. And anytime you need anything from my show, you just let me know, Elijah.
All right, I appreciate you having me on the show.
Keep up the good work.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
All right, buddy. We've been talking to Elijah Stacy from Corona, California, Centennial High School, Destroy Duchesne. And that's DUCHENNE, Duchesne. Look it up right now, Destroy Duchesne. Find the page, go find him on Instagram and Facebook, and also go to the website and find out more about Duchesne and how it's affecting these children. Elijah's on a very special mission, and I'm glad to help him through the Mark White Show. When we come back, we're going to talk to Mr. Scott Parks, and this is with Shooting to Change. And this program helps children with special needs, especially with autism, to be included as part of a group and play and through basketball. So I'm excited to get to talk to Mr. Scott when we come back on the Mark White Show. I hope that you'll stick with me. Please share this with your friends and let them know about the show. We'll be right back. Experience the difference in Athens Bible School. The vision and purpose is to provide each student a quality education. Extra We're back. You're listening to the Mark White Show. I'm your host, Mark White. Right now, we have with us Mr. Scott Parks with Shooting to Change. Welcome to the Mark White Show, Scott.
Thanks, Mark. Excited to be here.
Glad to have you. Let's talk about Shooting to Change and how it was created and what's the purpose.
Sure. So I am a special education teacher and work for an organization called Project Outreach Gulf Coast. I can tell you a little bit more about that later. But 5 years ago, my friend Drew Powell and I were both teaching at Spanish Fort High School, and his son Parker had been diagnosed with autism. And like any parent, when they get that initial diagnosis, there's an array of emotions from fear, anxiety, but ultimately a lot of times they have this desire to respond, to do something, not just to help their child, but sometimes even to help others. And so Drew had this idea that he brought to me and said, hey, I'd really like to create an event that partners with basketball, which he was the coach of, and provides and promotes autism acceptance through that. So he said, what if we put a basketball shirt on all the coaches that promoted autism in Baldwin County where we were working? And I told him, I was like, hey, that's a great idea, but honestly, it's too small. This is a huge issue that impacts not just our state, but our country. And so Project Outreach Gulf Coast paired up with the Powells, and so we started this event, Shooting to Change. And our goal is to promote autism acceptance through athletics. So kind of how we do that is we reach out to high school men's and women's basketball coaches throughout the state. And one specific week, we ask them to change their attire. And instead of wearing their shirt and tie or their game dress, that they would wear a T-shirt. And during that game, we give them a script that helps kind of promote autism awareness, acceptance, and understanding during a high school basketball game.
And I found out about Shooting to Change through Brian Pounders, who coaches at Deschler up in the Shoals area.
Yeah, so this year, this is our 5th year, and we had over 200 coaches in the state participate. And so we're seeing this continued growth. What's been interesting to us, too, is in the midst of this, we have hit a nail in the head with some of these coaches and families where there's many coaches who are impacted by autism. Patrick Davis at Vestavia, Philip Murphy at McGill down here in the Mobile area, and of course Drew and his wife that are now at Thompson High School in Alabaster. And those are just the ones we know of. We know that there's other stories where it's my niece, my nephews, my grandchild, all of these people who are impacted by autism want to kind of jump on board and do something about it. Shooting to Change is an easy opportunity to do that.
Well, let's talk about the families. Last Thursday on the Shooting to Change Facebook page, you had a post from the Powell family, and they were talking about how Shooting to Change has actually helped their life and their son who has autism.
Yeah, so one of the organization that I started at Spanish Fort 11 years ago is called Project Outreach. And Project Outreach is the kind of the overseer of this event, Shooting to Change. So Project Outreach, their goal is to connect students with disabilities together with their non-disabled peers for the betterment of both groups. So what we are doing, in addition to events like Shooting to Change, is we're putting service clubs in these schools, elementary, middle, high school, even pre-K schools, that connect and form these relationships with these students who really don't always have these opportunities. And so for Parker, when he was an elementary school kid down here at Rockwell Elementary, he was building relationships with his non-disabled peers. And so we're kind of teaching this culture, a different view of acceptance that I think in my generation, when we grow up, we were told, don't stare, don't look, don't pay attention to those things. We're trying to teach these kids that, hey, let's ask questions. Let's find out why. Let's introduce ourselves. Let's become friends.
Scott, what you're saying is so true because I'm in your generation. And of course, I remember in school having special needs students, but they were always separate from us.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I was a special ed teacher when we started Project Outreach, still am. But the idea was I had these kids, and outside the doors of my class were all these people who I felt like we didn't have any opportunity to connect. So we created those opportunities. And what we're teaching is, everybody in the school is different, but the key is they're different, but they're not less. So a student with autism or cerebral palsy or Down syndrome, I mean, even students that have different desires, athletes, students who are good students, who like various activities. We're all different, but no one is less. But the big thing we were hoping to accomplish, which I think has, is that the truth is that our students with disabilities, they're more alike their non-disabled peers than they are different. They love to text. They love to watch Netflix. They love to go out to eat. They love the movies. They like a lot of the same things, but there are some barriers based on their disabilities. And what a great way to help students break those barriers down by giving them time together. And that's what Project Outreach's goal and Shooting to Change's goal is, what we're trying to accomplish.
We're talking to Scott Parks with Shooting to Change. It is an organization that's promoting autism acceptance through athletics. Scott, we've talked about coaches across the state wearing these T-shirts to bring awareness, and I shared with you how I found out about it through a coach wearing a shirt. I know it has its foundation in South Alabama. How do you intend to grow it even further? Because as you said earlier, it's across the state of Alabama. It's a nationwide issue. What is your goal for the future?
Well, I think for us, we obviously have to evaluate every year, not only the high school level, but the collegiate level, participating in Shooting to Change, because when you strike a chord with people's hearts, they're obviously willing to go the extra mile to do something. So we created this with an Alabama focus. You know, we felt like bigger than Baldwin County, but no bigger than the state. But I think over time, you know, we're going to have to look and say, hey, maybe this is a Gulf Coast thing. Maybe this is a nationwide thing. Maybe we continue to expand. But I think the importance for us is this inroad. This gives us an opportunity to be at a high school basketball game where even in our state, we would say football is king. It gives us an opportunity to be somewhere, to put a message out there, and to have people start asking questions in a place that seemingly is not necessarily a familiar environment for those questions. But schools are the key. We believe that if we can change the way people are seen and understood in the school setting, then the culture will follow. You can watch the news to see the negative aspects of things going on in the schools. Well, this is a positive. And this is a positive that is really spreading rapidly, but also helping people get a glimpse of just what it's like to be kind. I mean, there's nothing special about being kind to an individual with a disability, but there is something sad about targeting and being unkind to one. And I think with Shooting to Change, we're shooting to change the way people see these students and ultimately their friends. And what's amazing to us is we watch kids have a totally different viewpoint where now they're calling their friends with a variety of different disabilities, and basically they're treating them just like they would treat anybody else. And that is when we say, okay, that's some serious change up.
Maybe somebody's listening that they were interested in finding out more. How would they go about it?
There's two aspects. One would be just to participate in Shooting to Change. There's an easy way to reach out to us through our Facebook page, also through our Project Outreach website, which is projectoutreachgulfcoast.com. But I think a component where people would maybe say, hey, that service club idea sounds like something I'd like to start in my school. I'd like to do that too. We're up to 30 chapters now. When we started at Spanish Fort High School in Baldwin County, and now we spread throughout the state. We have some up as far as Decatur. Obviously, most are in Mobile and Baldwin County down here. We have a couple in Birmingham. We have some others in other parts of the state. But our goal is, just like you said, is expanding that culture and helping kids and teachers and schools start that. So one of the things that we have as an organization, that's kind of our next cycle, is we do what we call through our chapters a week of change. And that's coming up second to last week in March and the first week in April. And those line up with World Down Syndrome Day and Autism Awareness Day and month. And what we do is a Disability Awareness Week. We're inside the schools. We teach about the various disabilities and how it has an impact on the schools and families and communities around them. And those are just more and more opportunities. And I think the last thing, especially for teachers or parents, predominantly teachers, is we have a conference in the summer where we bring everyone together and tell them, hey, if you're interested in starting a chapter, and that conference is late July down here in Fairland, Alabama. It's just, again, more opportunities. But we're always looking to grow and expand because we feel like the more people who are passionately doing the mission and vision of Project Outreach and Shooting to Change, just a better life will be for everybody.
through my show, I'm going to continue to share the effort Shooting to Change in hopes more people will join in, and we'll see it around the entire state of Alabama in the future.
Well, we appreciate that. Like I said, we had 200 coaches this year. There's almost 900 coaches just in the state for men's and women's. So we got a long way to go. The other part that's been real encouraging to us is the college support. This year we had our first regional game where University of South Alabama and Troy University, my alumni, jumped on board and supported us. And they had one of their biggest crowds ever, the Shooting to Change game. And I think the more we can go, where we can go up to the college level, down to the middle school level, all over the place, and using basketball to promote autism acceptance through athletics. That's just what we want to continue to do. So we appreciate anyone who helps us continue to move forward with our efforts and our passion. And we are open to anybody coming on and saying, hey, we want to help keep Shooting to Change, and we want to help promote autism acceptance through athletics.
Scott, I know you said that you were a special needs teacher. Who in your life influenced you to have that desire?
I went to Troy to be an architectural engineer. I was involved in a college ministry called Campus Outreach, and my life, both spiritually, kind of changed, and I just grew in a sense of passion. And when I was involved, I had to kind of pick some majors, and I went and visited some different teachers locally in Troy, and I saw some good examples and I saw bad examples. But I saw this guy named Jim Chance, who was a teacher, and he had just a fire and passion. But ultimately, what I learned studying the Bible is just speaking for those who can't speak for themselves, and really how to love your neighbor as yourself. And I think sometimes some of our neighbors that are most different from us are the ones that we've got to try the hardest to love and help others love. My wife and I have 5 children, and I want them to grow up in a culture that really shows people how to make a difference and be the change that they want to see in the world. And I just think it's always an active thing. It's not a passive thing. But I would say just those examples in my life and through college really gave me a heart to proactively do it. And one of the things that's been such a blessing is watching kids graduate high school and go into fields like speech pathology and special education and occupational therapy and come back, and they're helping us and they're growing. We're about to launch an alumni network for Project Outreach, because we've got kids all over the state and even all over the country who are continuing this because they saw something through their service group that they really connected their heart and they wanted to do it for the rest of their lives. It's pretty exciting that we have 2 alumni, Madison Ralph and Amber Watson, both students of Spanish Fort, went on to Southern Miss in Alabama, went to graduate school, and now they're professional, and they're wanting to start an alumni group to keep this vision going for the rest of their lives. Now, you can't trade that in. I'm never going to be able to quantify all the different people who've been impacted by Shooting to Change and Project Outreach, and so it definitely is fuel for me every day to get up and keep doing it.
If you want to find out more about Shooting to Change, I would encourage you to go to their Facebook page, Shooting, and that's the number 2 Change on Facebook. And also you can go to Instagram, email Scott Parks at shoot2change. That's the number 2 change at gmail.com. Thank you, Scott, for joining me today.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mark.
And that was Scott Parks with Shooting to Change and Project Outreach Gulf Coast of Mobile, Alabama. Appreciate Scott joining me. When we come back, we're going to have Terry Anders. She is with Rock Creek Pharmacy down in Concord. It's under a Bessemer address, but I know it is Concord, Alabama. She asked if she could come on and talk about the flu. And I know that I have people that are suffering from the flu right now, and I'm so sorry that you're having to go through that. I know a lot of students are suffering with it right now as well in our schools. And Terry is going to talk about flu prevention for those of us who have yet to catch it. So we'll have Terry Anders when we come back. You're listening to The Mark White Show, and I am your host, Mark White.
Good morning.
Good morning, Terry. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Doing great. I'm looking forward to this segment because I know there's a lot of people out there that yet to catch the flu and need this information. So what you're doing is really important, and I appreciate you reaching out to me about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to ask me questions or whatever. I don't have a whole lot of stuff, but I'll do what I can.
No, that's fine. We'll have about probably about 8 minutes. So I think we can do fine in that time.
Okay. Sounds good.
I think we've got about probably 2 minutes of commercial breaks left.
Okay. You're going to be, like, I'm watching you, so you're going to be talking to me live, right?
That's right.
Okay. Cool.
And you can hear okay through the Facebook Live?
Yeah, I've got it muted because I
Okay.
don't want it to feed back or anything, right?
Right. Sure. No. I just want to make sure that listeners can. Sometimes we have problems, and I've been having problems lately with the show commercials actually running through the Facebook Live, and maybe that'll be fixed before too long.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. No, I can hear fine through it.
Good. Thank you.
All that recorded too.
What's that?
How are you talking to me and I'm watching you talk on here?
Oh, are you hearing the commercials
I guess.
where you heard Baby Jack's Barbecue?
Well, I just turned it back. Recorded too? Oh, no, I see it now. Okay.
The power of technology.
I know, right? Cool. Don't laugh at me. Not done this ever.
She's live. Testing 1, 2, 3. If you'll give me a testing 1, 2, 3, Terry, please.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Keep going.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
One more time.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're good. I had Terry Anders message me on Facebook last week, and she said, "Do you need someone on your show to talk about flu prevention, shots, supplements, etc.?" And of course, right now the flu is something that is going around, and we have a high percentage of students who are out. And of course, it becomes a major problem this time of year. And so I appreciate Terry being willing to come on the program. She's with Rock Creek Pharmacy down near the Hueytown area in Concord. Welcome to the Mark White Show, Terry.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
No, thank you for being willing to do this. As a pharmacist, I know that you're seeing people come in for Tamiflu and the various things that they need once they have the flu. But let's talk about prevention and things that people can do prior to being diagnosed.
Well, absolutely. Of course, the number one thing is wash your hands. Especially right now, don't go out sick. Don't send your kids out sick. You know, if you send them back too quickly, they are still contagious, and it just you know, further creates problems. The main thing is the flu shot. I would have hoped everybody would have gotten a flu shot by now, but it's not too late to get one. I will stress a little bit, if you get a flu shot now and you are exposed to someone with active flu, you're not going to be fully protected for about 2 weeks. So that's why they stress, you know, to get the flu shot earlier in the fall. That's, you know, the main prevention things you can do. There is a thing right now, it's called elderberry syrup.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's popular. I did a little bit of studies on it. It's actually pretty good. It's a berry, and kind of an herbal berry that stops the replication of the virus, and it keeps it from penetrating the cell wall. So there are studies that show that it does work. And I know at my pharmacy, we have a local girl that makes local elderberry syrup. So it has local honey in it, which has great immune properties. It has echinacea and the elderberry. So that's pretty important. It gives you an immune booster. The echinacea in it, there's been studies done on that as well, that increases white blood cell production in your body, and that increases your immune response. So, that's pretty good too. There's also a product that everybody's seen. It's called, I don't know the correct pronunciation, but I call it oscillocosinem, and it's that really long word. It was real popular last year. I'm not too excited about it though.
Mm-hmm.
I looked online, and it does have one study they did that it decreased the symptoms by 0.25 of a day. So that's a quarter of a day. So I wasn't too excited about that, but that is out there. It is a possibility. But it's, I looked on the Alabama Public Health website right now. 2 weeks ago, at the end of January, across the state, we had a 5.55% activity in flu. Just this past week, at the end of February 2nd, it was up to 8%. So that just shows you the increase just in a week's time of the flu. There's been one pediatric death. I know I read this past Tuesday night, there was a third grader from Montgomery that actually passed away of flu-like symptoms. And then there's been 14 adult deaths of the flu, across the state of Alabama. So it's a pretty important thing right now.
And as you stated before, and I've seen people posting, don't be a hero going to work and to school, but we have people who have autoimmune diseases. We have people who have weak immune systems, and they are more susceptible to picking up the flu if we're not careful about that. And of course, it shows concern for them by staying at home when we are ill. Absolutely.
And there's some convenient things out there. Even going to the doctor, you can spread it very easily. At my pharmacy, there's a lot of pharmacies that are now offering flu and strep tests, the rapid strep test and rapid flu test. We're not able to prescribe anything if you do have a positive result, but we can call your doctor for you and get medication based on a positive result. But that makes it really super convenient. So you don't have to go to the doctor, or, maybe your pharmacy's just down the road. You can, go there instead of going to your doctor. But it just makes it a lot better too for just, spread of everything, because the doctors are just inundated right now with, with flu, and a lot of them just say stay home. But it's a real problem right now.
Exactly right. And I appreciate the suggestions of elderberry syrup as well as honey. Of course, these are natural remedies, and a lot of times we can go to the natural way and find things that can help us prevent some of these illnesses. So I appreciate that. And I know that you probably carry these things at Rock Creek Pharmacy, and people who are in that area could come by there and pick up those items.
Sure. Make sure that you keep it local too, because the local honey is the most important. I know you've probably heard that before, but
yes,
if you have a local honey supplier, it's better on your immune system. You have a better response on it. But just make sure it's the local elderberry syrup. There is one commercially available, and that one's really good. But the added bonus of the local honey just boost your immune system that much more.
Can the folks in Oak Grove and Sylvan Springs use the same honey from Concord?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. That sounds good to me. Well, Terry Anders, thank you for joining the Mark White Show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Thank you.
And that was Terry Anders with Rock Creek Pharmacy down in Concord, Alabama, talking about flu prevention. We appreciate her willingness to come on the program. Folks, I want you to stay with me. We are about to go to Effie Burleson Elementary School and talk to fourth graders there about a very special effort and fundraiser that they took on back at Christmas. And I'm very excited about talking to these students. So I hope you'll stay with me during the Mary Faye Hedrick Good Deed segment. She would love this one. You're listening to the Mark White Show, and I'm your host, Mark White. Hey, Ken, can you hear me?